Test, test. Well, it is 12 noon, so the Norfolk Public School District's Board of Education meeting is called to order. We'll begin with roll call. Dr. Thompson.
Terry Bauer. Present. Cindy Booth.
Present.
Brenda Carhart.
Present.
Lindsay Dixon emailed us this morning that she had an appointment in Lincoln. Beth Shashikant.
Present.
Sandy Wolf.
Present.
We have 5 members present, so we do have a quorum.
Is there a motion? Yes.
Lindsay Dixon from being absent.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Terry and a second by Cindy. Is there any discussion?
You say what our appointment was for?
Yes, her son had a doctor's appointment that I believe was just scheduled this morning.
Okay, please vote.
Motion carried 4-1.
Thank you, Callan. This is a legal meeting of the Board of Education as advertised by the means specified in board policy. A complete copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the boardroom for your review. A copy of the agenda is available at the desk of the recording secretary. We will begin with reports and discussion items. 3.1 is the budget and tax levy presentation. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. Give Eric a minute to pull that up. Okay, so our goal for the budget remains the same. We definitely want to provide outstanding educational opportunities for our students while minimizing the financial and tax impact on our patron. However, I took feedback from our last meeting to develop some more specific objectives to guide my work as I revised the budget. The objectives that I followed were that we wanted to fully fund the operating budget, complete the middle school addition if possible, maintain appropriate cash reserves for the future, lower the tax levy, and stay within the property tax authority limitations. Objectives like these are often developed by boards to help guide the work of the superintendent, and I think that is something we need to consider doing in the future. Our district needs have not changed since the first budget proposal. We still need $61,565,256 in order to meet our operational needs of staff, technology, curriculum, transportation, etc. And we still need to levy for the QC puffs so that we can pay off our bond, an amount of $778,600. And if we want to complete the middle school addition and renovation, then we need a building fund of $1,670,783. New construction can only be paid out of the special building fund. We can't use any of our other funds to do that by law. This page hasn't changed since the first presentation. You all know that the large majority of our staff, of our budget is due to staffing, 82.81%, and that $3 million basically of our budget increase is due to staffing, partly due to the wage increase and partly due to those additional staff. We did have about $1 million in other increases between transportation, contracted services, sanitation, other utilities, etc. And there's an additional $1.2 million in the budget due to federal ESSERS fund that we're required to expend this school year or we will lose it, and a $500,000 transfer to depreciation. That is for curriculum. In particular, language arts and math curriculum materials are extremely expensive, so we have to save up for those purchases over time. We were able to decrease in a few areas, maintenance of building, vehicle operations maintenance, and the state early childhood grant. None of that has changed since the first proposal. The proposed change that I am recommending is that we use our cash reserves and budget additional special ed reimbursement so that we can lower the levy an additional 5 cents. That would give us a general fund levy of 95 cents, special building fund levy of 5 cents, QC Puff levy of 2.33 cents, for a total levy of $1.0246. That is a levy reduction from last year of 5.34 cents. It would require us to budget $3.2 million between cash reserves and additional SPED funding. We can divide that out, however. The total task asking increase is just a little over $1.3 million, or a 4.1% increase. I did not take this recommendation to the board initially, as it didn't align with previous boards' budget philosophy. I think that that's something we need to talk about in the future. And I thought long and hard before I allocated additional cash reserve money, because we've worked very hard to build that up to put us in a strong position. But we looked at the numbers over and over, and I think that we will be fine there. There is a lot of uncertainty regarding the new state aid formula, especially for equalized school districts who are reliant on TIOSA and the increased SPED reimbursement, because we don't get any benefit from the $1,500 foundation aid. I've tried to balance that uncertainty by using cash reserves, and I did that from the very beginning. The change that is made to this proposal is to use an additional $500,000 of our cash reserves and budget $1.1 million in additional SPED reimbursement so that we could fund the middle school project via the special building fund and lower the levy another 5 cents. The actual amounts that are allocated to cash reserves and SPED reimbursements are estimates. We've put $3.2 million total. 1.6 was the original amount, and we put in another 1.6 here. They're allocated between those two categories, but the amount of cash reserves that we use will be determined based upon how much we receive in SPED reimbursement. If the SPED reimbursement number is higher, then our cash reserves will be lower, and the opposite is true. So, if this proposal is adopted, we would still have a deficit of $674,000 in the special building fund, so we would need a 2-cent special building fund levy next year. That would leave us room for a 98-cent general levy without making any increases to the levy next year. And that would likely be needed because we would have to really limit our use of cash reserves moving forward. We cannot continue to use cash reserves indefinitely. It would eventually run out, and we need money in cash reserves to maintain cash flow. We use that to pay our bills in months when we do not receive any tax receipts. Advantages that I see to this proposal are that it does meet our general fund needs. We'll be able to operate our district and meet our students' needs. The levy for the building fund would provide us with the additional funding to complete the middle school addition and renovation. We've reduced the tax asking by over $1.6 million and would be able to provide our patrons with nearly a 5.5-cent levy reduction from last year. We would also stay under all of the state-imposed lids and limits, and there's some room for future growth in the general fund without increasing that total levy. I have received some questions about the budget timeline, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time on that. We begin pre-budget work in the summer based upon estimated needs and resources, but we cannot begin real budget work until August 20th, which is when we get our assessed valuations from the counties. Until that point, we don't know how much money is even available. So we got that number on August 20th, worked really hard from that time on to put some proposals together, which I took to the Finance and Facilities Committee on August 23rd. After getting feedback from that committee regarding how to move forward, I took a proposal to the entire board during a budget workshop that was open to the public. That meeting was held on August 30th, 2 days before I was required to send notice to the county assessor, letting them know if we were planning to attend the joint public hearing. The proposal received positive feedback that day, so I sent our notice to the county assessor the next day, August 31st, 1 day before the deadline. Between that date and September 11th, I met with several board members individually to answer questions. And on September 11th, we had our budget hearing, tax hearing, and the board voted on a resolution to exceed the property tax lid. That resolution failed, so we went back to the drawing board. 8 days later, September 19th, I held a special Finance and Facilities Committee to discuss a new proposal. Again, the proposal received positive feedback, so I scheduled a meeting with the remaining board members the next day to go over the proposal with them. And we attended the joint public hearing the next day, September 21st. That brings us to today, 2 days before the budget and tax deadlines, where all of our documents have to be filed with the county and the state. Norfolk Public Schools has worked hard over the last 13 years and has lowered our levy by 29.5 cents. In fact, out of the 26 schools in the state of Nebraska that have 2,000 or more students, we have the 5th lowest levy. I was trying to compare all Class A and B schools, but it's hard to know exactly what all the Class B schools are, so we chose that number of 2,000 students. And Norfolk Public Schools is the 20th most efficient school out of 244 schools in the state of Nebraska in terms of costs per pupil. We take our fiscal responsibility very seriously, trying to keep our costs as low as we can without sacrificing the quality of education that we provide for our students. Are there any questions?
I just have one question about SPED money. After our September 11th meeting, when the resolution didn't pass, myself and Finance Committee and yourself had an email going, and your email said that SPED money could not be used for anything other than SPED. When did you discover that our reimbursement money could be used for the middle school?
It cannot be used for the middle school. We have to use the special building fund for the middle school addition. The SPED reimbursement money replaces money in our general budget that we have already spent on special education, freeing up that money which we can use for other things within the general budget.
So renovation.
It could be used for the renovation portion, yes.
So that money was always available for the middle school renovation.
The SPED money cannot be used for that. The money that it frees up then can be used for that. So however you want to look at it, yes.
Thank you.
I just don't want people to get the idea that we're using special ed money for something other than special ed. That will make a lot of people very upset within the community. So that's why I'm being very careful about that articulation, Terry.
I understand. It's reimbursement from the previous year, correct? Correct. That we did use on special ed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Okay, seeing that there are no other questions, we will go to our action items. And 4.1 is discuss, consider, and take action to approve the 2023-24 budget. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. The proposed 2023-2024 budget has been reviewed by all board members and discussed at a public budget workshop on August 30th. The public also had an opportunity for comment and input at our budget hearing on September 11th. This budget has not changed since those meetings. Our revenue sources are what has been changed. I am proposing that we utilize additional cash reserves and special ed reimbursement in order to lower the levy an additional 5 cents and stay under the new property tax lid. Our total general fund budget, which covers all operating expenses including staff, transportation, instructional materials, utilities, and maintenance, is set at $71,273,359. This is $1,861,985, or 2.68% more than last year's general fund budget. The large majority of this increase is due to staffing costs, which make up 81.83% of our budget. Our special building fund budget is set at $8,277,765. This is $1,325,869.36 less than last year. It is anticipated that $6,493,782 of this amount will be utilized to complete our middle school addition. The remaining $1,783,983 has already been allocated to other projects, such as the replacement of the chiller system at the senior high school, final bills for construction project at Bel Air in the junior high, and the demolition of the house we purchased on Walnut Street. Our depreciation budget is set at $6,445,290. This is $2,020,594.75 less than last year. Money in the depreciation fund must be designated for a specific purpose. Only $2,839,327 of this is designated for maintenance, and $1,725,603 of that has already been designated for other projects, leaving us with $1,113,724 that can be utilized to complete our middle school renovation. Additional fund budgets, I think, require less explanation and are included in the attachment.
I make a motion to approve the 2023-24 budget.
Second that motion?
We have a motion by Beth and a second by Brenda. Is there discussion?
I would say that I'm happy that the middle school project can continue to take place without increasing the tax lid, as I never indicated, and neither did anybody in this room, that we were anti-safety, fine arts, or renovation of the middle school. I was against surpassing the lids to do so and to make that, and we all made that very clear at the board meeting. So.
I'd just like to add, especially as a teacher, I always put the priorities of the students top of my priority, but we also need to take into effect the going over the override does affect other people and not just our students. I think we need to create that balance where we're cognizant of the taxpayers, but also put the needs of our students in making a good school. So we need to find that balance.
I absolutely agree with that too. You know, my big concern is why this proposal wasn't brought up and where the money just came from overnight. It was made very clear by the district leader that the middle school was not going to move forward if we didn't pass the 1.1 tax lid. So I'm glad we found it. Don't misunderstand that, but it should have probably been brought to the public's attention that we had the special ed money and we didn't need to surpass the lid.
Go ahead.
I think one problem with, well, not a problem necessarily, but one rationale for not having that special education funding money in there right away is that it's tough to count on money when you don't know exactly what it's going to be. You know, Sandy, Dr. Thompson, myself, I think Cindy was in on a lot of the meetings during the legislative session when they were discussing the new governor's finance package, and would special education funding be at 80%? Would it be inside the formula, outside the TIOSA formula? So, you don't necessarily want to count on money when you don't know exactly what that's going to be. So I think the fact that, Dr. Thompson decided to put that in there, being able to balance it with cash reserves money, was a good option, but.
And I just want to say, having been on the board for a long time, the philosophy was always that we needed to keep those funds available because we never know for sure what's going to happen. I mean, COVID was a perfect example. So it's like any of you that have savings, this is what this fund is for. It's for our savings. And we don't even have income every month. So some months we're paying all these bills with no income. So we can never get that fund down to nothing. So there was no magic in it. It was the fact that in the past we'd always preserved that money and we'd never gone into that reserve because we knew the reserve was there for any time we'd need something that could happen that was unexpected or to pay our bills. It was never thought of as a magic fund.
I think everybody understands that's, you want 3 months reserve in there. That wasn't the point. The TIOSA money, everybody knew there was some questions. We weren't getting that 500,000. That's where the formula that the state auditor had on there. The 1.1 million is still what I believe very, very conservative. My hope is that we get the 70% back that the governor has proposed. And it was put into place because everybody was in a bad spot because of TIOSA money.
And I just want to say that I had conversations with each one of you up front about that rather than putting the 1.1 million onto the special ed reimbursement line, I was taking it out of cash reserves because we didn't know how much that would be. And that if we got SPED reimbursement, we wouldn't have to use those cash reserves. We had that conversation with every one of you. So that was clear from the very beginning.
You said, Terry, we hope it's there. We still don't know. We still do not know how much that money will be. I hope it's going to be more.
It's at 80%.
Have you looked on the state auditor's website?
Those are estimates. Those aren't real money.
Right, and it should be about October, that'll be out. They turn into hard numbers. When will that turn into hard numbers?
I don't know when we'll get hard numbers on that. We won't get the reimbursement until the second half of the year. And we've gotten all kinds of estimates. The governor's and state legislators' estimates are over $2 million. The formula that I was given by NDE when we plugged in the numbers came out to 1.1 million. And so that's the number that we chose to use. If it's 2 million, I will be very happy, and we won't have to use as much cash reserves. That's why I'm being very clear about that. It's 3.2 million between the two lines. I don't know where it's going to come from in the end.
Makes sense, thank you.
I'm just very glad, like you have all said, we're coming together, we're able to do this at the middle school, safe and secure, do what's needed, service our kids, and at the same time take care of our community. So the end result is awesome. It just took some work getting there. And with that, please vote. That we have a vote, right?
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you, Callan. 4.2 is discuss, consider, and take action to approve the 23-24 tax request. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. This one is very formal. Public notice was given at least 5 days in advance of the district's special public hearings on September 11th and September 21st, which were called for the purpose of discussing and approving or modifying the district's tax requests for the 2023-2024 schools fiscal year for the General Fund, Special Building Fund, and Qualified Capital Purpose Undertaking Fund of Madison County School District 59-0002. A special public hearing was held before the Board of Education of Madison County School District 59-0002 at the time, date, and place announced in the notice published in the newspaper of general circulation, a copy of which notice and proof of publication is attached hereto as Exhibit A1. A joint public hearing was held before the public of Madison County at the time, date, and place announced in the notice published in a newspaper of general circulation, a copy of which notice and proof of publication is attached hereto as Exhibit A2, all of which is required by law. Whereas Nebraska Revised Statutes 77-1632 and 77-1633 provides that the governing body of Norfolk Public Schools passes by a majority vote a resolution or ordinance setting the tax request, and whereas a special public hearing was held as required by law to hear and consider comments concerning the property tax request, now therefore the governing body of Norfolk Public Schools resolves that the 2023-2024 property tax request be set at General Fund $32,112,531, Special Building Fund $1,687,660, Qualified Capital Purpose $786,465. Number 2, the total assessed value of property differs from last year's total assessed value by 9.61%. Number 3, the tax request, which would levy the same amount of property taxes as last year, when multiplied by the new total assessed value of property, would be $0.983617 per $100 of assessed value. Number 4, Norfolk Public Schools proposes to adopt a property tax request that will cause its tax rate to be $1.024693 per $100 of assessed value. Number 5, based on the proposed property tax request and changes in other revenue, the total operating budget of Norfolk Public Schools will decrease last year's budget by 1.46%. Number 6, a copy of this resolution will be certified and forwarded to the county clerk on or before October 15th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023-2024 tax request resolution.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Brenda and a second by Beth. Is there discussion? Please vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you, Callan. I would like to thank my fellow board members for coming together to pass this budget. I know it was quite a task, and I would like to thank Dr. Thompson. I know you took a lot of direction. Usually this is at least a two-person job, but we are missing a business manager. So all of this has gone back on our superintendent, who's doing two jobs right now. I just want to make sure everybody realizes that. There's been so much in this. Not that the superintendent doesn't know everything, but this is a little bit out of your realm. So thank you for taking the reign, for listening to us, for going back, for getting this to work, because that's what this is about, is making this work for everybody concerned. So thank you. Future meetings, our next meeting is on the regular meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Monday, October 9th, 2023. The study session will begin at 5:30 p.m. The regular business meeting will start at 6:30 p.m. All components of these meetings will be held here at the Central Administration offices and will be open to the public unless an executive session is needed in order to protect the interest of the district or the reputation of an individual. Meeting adjourned.
Do we know if we're having a study session on October 9th? Or are we starting in here or out there, in there?
It's great information, and it's always kind of tragic when we're shoved into that room